Hi, I'm Harriet Zaidman. I live in Winnipeg and I'm a writer for young people. When I was a kid growing up, my father told me a story about his childhood, say about 1929, 1930. It was a time when people still had barns in their backyard. You might have a horse or you might have chickens. And he said the next door neighbor was a baker who had a horse, and the man would promise to give horses to all the kids in the neighborhood. Of course, he didn't. Anyway, I took that idea of a story and I turned it into Benny's Dream Horse. Benny was my father's name. This story is for you. When I was a child, no one on our street had much money. If my friends were lucky enough to get a nickel, they bought candy or added it to their coin jar to save for a pair of ice skates or a toy train set. But I didn't care for candy. My hand-me-down skates still fit, and a toy train just went around in circles. I knew I would have to put money away for a long time for what I wanted most, a horse, to ride across the windswept prairie. I wanted to be a cowboy like the ones I read about in books. There, that's his dream. A horse? Ma raised her eyebrows when I told her. Her hands were busy. The warm sun and summer breeze dried the laundry she pinned to the clothesline in our backyard. We can't afford a horse, Benny. She motioned with her chin to the yard next door. Maybe Mr. Becker will let you ride Ferdle. She went back to her work. A horse, I heard her say. But I had hope. Becker is the name of the baker. And Becker means baker in Yiddish. And Ferdle means horse. So the horse was named Horse. Here's Ma. She's pinning her laundry up. Mr. Becker was our neighborhood baker. He made bread and bagels and sold them in his shop. He also delivered bread in his wagon, pulled by Ferdle, his big brown horse. Every day, Ferdle plodded down the streets, stopping on her own at each customer's home. I never saw her run, but I knew her strong legs and huge hooves meant she could race for hours without resting, even with me on her back. See here, here's Mr. Becker's shop. The next Sunday morning, when the bakery was closed, Mr. Becker appeared in his backyard, carrying a bucket of water for Ferdle. He wore white cotton pants held up by long red suspenders. He rubbed his mustache and freshly shaved face with the towel slung around his shoulders. His cheeks looked smiley pink. Ferdle nibbled grass on the other side of the yard. I summoned up the courage to approach the fence and called out, Mr. Becker, would you sell Ferdle to me? I climbed over the fence, pulled from my pocket 2 nickels I had saved, and held them up. I'll pay you the rest later, I said. Ferdle shook her mane and whinnied. I knew she could sense my excitement. And here's Mr. Becker, looking real nice and clean. He's got water for his horse, and there's that horse, Ferdle. She's excited. Mr. Becker said, pulling on his mustache. He tucked my fingers back around the coins and patted my shoulder. Perhaps you should help me deliver bread and learn to care for her. Then you can decide if you want to buy Ferdle. You can start tomorrow. There he is. Mr. Becker's making a bargain with him. I was ready before the sun rose the next morning. All through the hot month of July, I sat tall on the seat of the delivery wagon while Ferdle took us on our rounds. Every day I wanted to urge her into a gallop, but Mr. Becker only used the reins to pull her to a stop when a noisy motor car or a truck whizzed by. The vehicles startled her. She snorted before setting off again on the route she knew so well. So there he is. Look at that. He's in charge of Ferdle while Mr. Becker takes the bread up to the house. He's in charge of that horse. Mr. Becker showed me how to care for Ferdle. A cowboy keeps his horse happy, he said, demonstrating how to wash Ferdle down with a garden hose and brush her coat until it shone. He taught me how to feed her a fresh apple as a reward for a day's hard work. Soon I mastered the job of cleaning her stall. Before I closed the barn every night, I laid down a fresh bed of straw so she would be comfortable. You'll be an excellent cowboy, Mr. Becker told me. Look at that, taking responsibility for taking care of an animal, which is a huge, huge job to keep it healthy. When I wasn't working with Ferdle, I practiced for the big day. I covered a sawhorse with an old rug folded like a saddle. I rode on, steering my wooden horse with reins made of rope, rounding up cattle on the wide open plains. Look at that. He's on a sawhorse with his friend riding behind him. He's practicing. There's the reins. And there's the mom's garden. I pretended to be a sheriff with my sister and my friends playing their roles too. Our posse chased outlaws who had stolen gold bars and sacks of mail from the Pony Express. We cut the thieves off at the pass, captured them, and put them in jail. A basket my mother used for her laundry. See, there's the sister is in jail and her friend's guarding her. There's all the laundry hanging there. July rolled into August. Ferdl continued to plod the streets, delivering bread. Whenever I begged to take the reins or ride her, Mr. Becker held up his hand and said, "In good time, Benny, in good time." Ma was no help. "Ferdl is still Mr. Becker's horse," she said. "He knows best." But I couldn't wait. School would be starting soon. When would I become a cowboy? Okay, what's going to happen here? There's Mr. Becker saying, "Hold on," and he's anxious. Benny is anxious. One Sunday afternoon, when the blazing sun kept everyone else indoors, I snuck into Ferdl's stall. She stood there as if waiting for me, her tail swatting the flies buzzing around her. I put the bit in Ferdl's mouth and slipped the bridle over her ears. Then I threw the old rug on her back and led her out of the stall. Remembering from my books how a cowboy mounted a horse, I climbed the fence, swung my leg over her back, and finally, there I was, a real cowboy riding my horse. I straightened my hat, picked up the reins, and clucked my tongue for Ferdl to begin walking, the way Mr. Becker did when he took her out for deliveries. Oh my, look at that. He's getting her. He knows exactly what to do. He's been watching. Ferdl began her regular plod, 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 her hoofs clomping the pavement. When we reached the street, I pleaded with her to speed up. To no avail. I squeezed my legs against her sides, but she kept her pace, steady. Not one step faster than the last. There's Ferdl. She's just doing what she normally does, plod, plod, plodding. Nearing the intersection, I decided it was time for her to break into a run. I shouted, "Giddy up!" and dug my heels into her ribs. Ferdl lurched in surprise. At that very moment, a huge automobile roared around the corner, coming straight at us. The driver screeched to a halt. Look at that. He's gotten thrown forward. The driver stuck his head out the window. "Hey, kid, get that horse off the street," he yelled. He pulled his head back in, put the car in reverse, and zoomed off. Oh, my goodness. It took a few minutes to catch my breath. I dried my tears and rubbed my sore spots. Then I walked home, my head pressed to Ferdl's shoulder. As I came closer to the house, I saw Ma and Mr. Becker running toward me. I told them my story. Look, poor Benny. The horse looks like it's comforting him. Mr. Becker tugged at his mustache and rubbed his cheeks. Ma tended to my bumps and rocked me in her arms as he explained. "Ferdl's an old horse, Benny. She's nearly blind." "Blind?" I gasped. "But she knows her route," he said, "but that's all she can do. She can't run. She can't even trot. Soon Ferdl will be going to live on a farm. There are too many motor cars on the road now, and they go too fast. It's becoming dangerous for her. Times are changing, Benny. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you." So poor Mr. Becker was trying to shield Benny from the hard truth that he couldn't have the horse. School began soon after. Ma made sure my clothes were clean and the hems on my pants were let down because my legs had grown longer over the summer. One Sunday morning in September, Ma packed a lunch and sent me, my sister, and my friends on a trip with Mr. Becker to his friend's farm in his new delivery truck. See, he doesn't have a cart anymore that the horse is pulling. The horses are running free in the pasture. "There she is," I squealed when I saw Ferdl munching grass in the pasture. She whinnied at the sound of my voice and found her way to me, her gait slow but somehow lighter than when she dragged the wagon down those streets. She nuzzled and nudged me, waiting for the apple she knew I had brought for her. I stroked her muzzle and leaned against her shoulder. Above the green field, clouds billowed across the sky. In them, I saw the shapes of ponies galloping and tossing their manes. See, there he is, greeting Ferdl, who's blind, but followed the voice to the fence. And there's the clouds with the shapes of ponies. When we returned home, Mr. Becker put the truck in his garage. Before he went into his house, he took my hand and filled my palm with 10 bright new nickels, his pink cheeks smiling. "For your hard work," he said. See, Mr. Becker's rewarding him. He's paying him. There's no more a stable. It's now a garage. Things change. On my next birthday, my parents gave me a bike. It was second-hand, but I could make it go fast. I decorated the handlebars with ribbons, and I used clothespins to clip pieces of cardboard at the back wheel, so my bike click, click, clicked as I rode. I felt pretty special speeding down the sidewalk with my sister and my friends as the wind whistled through my hair, my cowboy hat dangling behind. So here he is. He's got a used bike, but that's okay because he's now a cowboy on the sidewalk. He's got a bike. He's having fun. Riding far away. I never did own a horse, and I never became a cowboy. Years and years later, though, I still have Mr. Becker's nickels. I also have stories for my family. I tell my grandchildren those coins were gifts of kindness and imagination, worth more than all the money in the world. So here he is. He grew up and grew older. He's a grandpa now, and he's got grandchildren, probably the age he was. But although he doesn't have a horse anymore, never had a horse, he has a story that he shares with his family. I'm sure you have family stories, and this is my family story, which I'm sharing with you. I hope you liked Benny's Dream Horse.